Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Watches and Wonders Salon 2022. We are very happy to welcome you here in Palexpo Geneva. We are broadcasting live every day at 1 p.m. for our panel discussions. Yes, every day we will be talking about a new topic, and the main central theme this year that we've chosen is sustainability. So we will start right in a few seconds with transparency. This is the topic of the day. I have with me guests that I will introduce in a few seconds, and every day we will have new guests from the watch and jewelry industry with us. So I hope you are ready, because we are. Let's start right now. Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today. So my first guest is Diana Verde Nieto. You are co-CEO Positive Luxury. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
We're very happy. And then we have on remote Isabelle Sultan, Chief Sustainability Officer for Dior Parfum. Hi, Isabelle. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thanks for having me. So I'm working for Parfum Christian Dior.
Exactly, Parfum Dior, and we are very happy to welcome you, Parfum Christian Dior, as you just said. With you today is Sabrina Karib. She's founder Precious Metals Impact Forum. Hi.
Yes, hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice
to meet you. Very happy. Thank you. And then the only man today on the set. Yes, we have to say it. I'm sorry.
My best candidate.
Yes, exactly. This is Robin Swithenbank, journalist in the UK. Thank you for joining us today. We're very happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we have the guests, but we have also very important persons with us today, because as you know it, you can send us your questions, and we want your questions. So please send them through the chat box that you can see on your screen, and we will answer to them, at least a lot of them, maybe not all of them. During this session, we will be having 2 Q&A, and who's gonna collect all these questions? This is our Pascal and Benjamin. Hi, Pascal. Hi, Benjamin.
Hi, Melanie.
I hope you're ready.
Yes,
Totally.
we are always.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So we are looking forward to reading your question. But let's start right now with the topic that we are dealing with. This is transparency, which is not, let's be honest, the easiest topic when we talk about watch industry. I would like to have your feeling to start maybe with one of you ladies.
Diana?
You go.
Okay. So I would say that, yes, it's true. Transparency is not an easy topic. Maybe culturally, brands are not used to lots of transparency. It doesn't mean, though, that they are not doing a lot behind the scenes. And I think that there's really an important trend to more transparency, and that's what I would like to focus on, what they are really trying to do now.
And this is really interesting what you just said, because actually things have been done, but it was hidden. So the switch is now that, well, it needs to be shown, you know?
I think it's, maybe because the public is requiring more accountability from the brands. And so they do have to give more numbers, more KPIs, more information about what they have been doing, but also what they are planning on doing. And so I think it's a very positive trend. I don't know if you observe the same, but I would say it's a very positive trend.
Yes, I would like to have your point of view, Jenna.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have worked in sustainability for almost 24 years. And when I started my career, it was almost like an uphill battle, basically. Perhaps like pre-COVID, this was starting to become much more loud amongst like luxury industry, especially. And I think what COVID has done is accelerated the trend to accountability to start with, and then transparency. And this comes from a pull and a push. So consumer has been perhaps more, with a more appetite for transparency before brands were ready to start communicating. And now it's an acceleration to really actually have the ability to communicate not just excellence, but progress. And this is what we are looking at. So luxury traditionally is about, it's about the dream, it's about, kind of this incredible performance of the brand, but actually what people are wanting is to connect with the brand in a way that actually they can. Mm-hmm. And I think now is like you said, Serena, it's imperative that brands are showing progress, are becoming open and respectful, and also humble to say, we don't have all the solutions, but we are trying on here and here, and actually being open about this trial and testing. And this, I think, what people want is a bit more of a luxury industry that is open, that is more positive, and that is more humble, I would say.
Okay, Sabrina, if I hear you well, this is also the fact that the industry needed to find the right way to communicate about it.
Yes, absolutely, but it's hard to find the right way to communicate when the topic is so vast, so complex, so diverse. So we were just talking earlier that the food industry has done it really well, but if you think about the regulation and the structure that the food industry had for many, 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 many years, mm-hmm. It has put them in a position to be able to actually have this transparency. Companies that are not in the food industry are not regulated in that way. So this is becoming, now that there is legislation on the way, that there is more urgency from investors according to ESG frameworks, there is more accountability from peers in the industry and for consumers. The industry is starting to understand and wrap their head around that transparency is not an option. It's a must, and it's part of that governance structure. So it's just changing mindset. So sustainability, of course, is about impact, but also is about mindset. Mm-hmm. And this is what it requires a change within on the value chain, but also requires a change in the culture of the business and the governance of that information, and make it open to everyone.
And we'll see that all along this panel discussion, mindset is key. But I would like to turn now to Isabelle, because you are working in the industry for Christian Dior perfumes. So how do you see it from your point of view? How do you deal with this transparency?
So as you understood, at Parfum Christian Dior, we are not in the watches business, but we are in the luxury beauty business. So basically we take care of fragrance, skincare, and makeup. And what is very important to us is at Parfum Christian Dior, we stand and we want to only leave beauty as a legacy. And to do that, we believe notably in the regenerative power of flowers, which are at the core of every single product that we have, to enable ecosystems to thrive. Having said that, I want to share that we have been acting for a long time. That's exactly what you said earlier, without voicing it. So maybe because we felt it was not enough, or we were not perfect, but we were doing things. And if I take two examples, in Grasse, for instance, we've been partnering with organic flower growers for more than 15 years. We've been contributing to the revitalization of the cradle of fragrance flowers there, which is important and which not a lot of people know. We've also been innovating in the 50s already. I mean, there were refillable lipsticks by Monsieur Dior, but we also basically today have been pushing to make our main lines refillable in fragrance with Sauvage, notably, that is the #1 fragrance globally. And this is a way to advocate for new behaviors. And we are accelerating. So what I want to say is that it's about a journey. We're accelerating on climate. On climate, we've been, for instance, publicly committing to a science-based carbon trajectory, a 1.5 degrees carbon trajectory, which means that we will need to reduce our CO2 emissions by minus 46% by 2030. This is extremely ambitious. This is requiring a lot of work on our green energy, transition, in eco-design, in transportation modes. And all of this, together with also accelerating on biodiversity to transition to organic and regenerative agriculture, to basically do all of this in this crucial decade that is ahead of us, but also working on being more transparent in our formulations by basically adopting, for instance, a responsible formulation charter that basically explains what we mean by clean when we speak about clean beauty, clean products, which a lot of people talk about, using a word that is quite blurry. By doing this, we are basically exposing ourselves to commitments on which we are on a journey. So going back to the transparency topic, it's about what you said, which is setting ourselves ambitious goals and acknowledging that we are vulnerable because we are on a journey. We are not yet there. But our responsibility is to shoot to the moon, to basically adopt a posture that is at the level of the world's stakes, and then progress and acknowledge that sometime we will need to share that we are not totally in line with the reduction trajectory, and that we need to boost our actions, that we need to do extra effort. But I think that's just modern leadership.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. And now I would like to turn to you, Robin, because you are, if I can say so, outside of the direct industry. So how do you see that when you hear these words and when you see the fact that it's really interesting to hear that maybe communicating at the beginning wasn't that easy because the brands were just afraid not to be perfect? Is that an excuse? How do you see it as a
No, I don't think it's
journalist?
an excuse, but I think that the challenge with transparency is that it requires a certain amount of cultural change. So whether we look at in the case of the Swiss watch industry, the Swiss have always been very good at operating in the space in between, shall we say. And that's also been the case in luxury. Luxury is exclusive, luxury is intriguing, luxury is mysterious. There are certain protections around luxury, which mean that, historically at least, brands have been reluctant to open the book, talk about exactly what they're doing. But we've very clearly entered a phase, an era, a period of time, when the consumer is saying, well, if you're not prepared to tell me what you're doing, what have you got to hide? Mm-hmm. And that is a question that brands increasingly are having to answer in order to prove their legitimacy,
And
prove
that's
that they
a problem,
are doing what they say
right?
they're doing. It's a problem if you don't, increasingly. I think we're at this sort of, to stick with the topic of sustainability, I think there is a sustainable fault line running through the Swiss watch industry now and through luxury in general. And there are some brands who are bringing this seismic shift. They are at the vanguard. They are innovating and breaking new ground in the area of sustainability. And there are others who are ploughing the same old furrow, who are falling into the crack. And for those brands, I think that there is a long-term problem. Because when it comes to building a brand, you need to think about the future. You need to work outside your category often as well. And sustainability offers the perfect opportunity to do both of those things, to protect yourself for the next 25, 30, 50 years.
So what we hear is that it's really a challenge, but it's a good one. So my next question would be, what is the trigger? Where did it start from? Because we heard from you just before, you were talking about the COVID that accelerated the system, but what has been the trigger, according to you?
I mean, well, the first thing I would say is that what COVID has done is put things into perspective and allow us to understand our relationship with the natural world and also our relationship with one another. And then understand what luxury actually means. So there is a new definition of luxury. Positive luxury, it's a luxury that cares about craftsmanship, respect for people and the planet, is inclusive, is this idea of inclusive exclusivity. And also it has, all the attributes that luxury normally have, but without the negative. So traditionally luxury was opulent and wasteful, that there is no space for a luxury industry in that way anymore. So this idea of a positive luxury is a positive, net positive impact and contributing to the wellness of the world, it's an imperative for brands. And a little bit like what Isabel said, is like a lot of the brands have been doing it for many, many years. The other point is that, you know, what COVID also have done is put everybody in almost like the same playing field and understand where we are. And, you know, kind of, you know, we all talk about environment, and environment is incredibly important. But like you said, it's just this fault line comes in 3 flavors. Environment, which is in a way the easiest because it's easier to measure, although it's the least funded. It's only 1% of all investment goes to environmental causes.
Which is nothing.
The second is social. So that's the second part. And the third one is this governing piece, which is the transparency, is the sustainable development goals, and it's how we can, together at unison, whether you are in beauty, in watches, in fashion, we can contribute to actually leave the world in a better state. And you talked about a little earlier about, you know, the new generation. So if you have kids under 10, you are in big trouble. The alphas are to sustainability what millennials were to digital. So get ready for what's coming your way. The Gen Zs are, you know, kind of maybe not have the disposable income, but they're getting a taste of luxury by the new business models available to them. Resale, you know, pre-love. And they're starting to have and toy with luxury in an accessible price point. And then you have, you know, kind of the world is becoming, although very unequal, but at the same time, this inclusive exclusivity side, which is consumer want it, consumer need it. They need to know that the brands that they're buying represents them. So I think that there is this mind shift, this change of value system that COVID has actually accelerated. And we are seeing this not just in the developed world, but in the developing world. So I come from the global south, as you can probably notice from my accent, from South America. And, you know, although there is a lot of inequalities all over the world, people are all striving to a more just, equal world. And they're looking at the global north for leadership. And we've seen this in COP26. I mean, if you've been to COP, this tension has been there, and this acknowledgement of how global north can develop, help to develop the global south has been there for ages. But now is the time in which brands can play a key role to actually leave the world better.
But then the thing is, it's a general change. This is a world change. This is not luxury or fashion or whatever. This is in general. So the question is, do the brands have a choice? I don't think so.
They have a responsibility. I go beyond choice. I think that the luxury by definition is not necessary. Luxury is also largely by definition positive. So when we buy into luxury brands, it is by and large a positive experience. It's something memorable, it's something enjoyable,
Emotions.
and it brings people together. And as a consequence, I think the luxury industry has a responsibility to say we can be a driver for positive change. We are wealthy, we have the money to be able to innovate and to pioneer, and therefore it becomes incumbent upon us to be the ones that bring that societal change, that positive change for the future. And there are brands that are doing it. There are brands that have recognised that responsibility and are acting on it. This week, Oris, for example, has produced its first sustainability report. Some brands have been doing that for a number of years. That is the base layer, I think, as far as a luxury brand is concerned, and I'm sure you've got views on that. And from there, it's a case of building. That's sort of square one. What is astonishing is that there are still dozens and dozens and dozens of brands in this industry who don't even do a sustainability report. They're not asking themselves the questions which the consumers are going to be asking them more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And it's that cohort that I worry about.
Can these brands survive?
That's not a question I can answer because I don't have a crystal ball. But I do think it's going to become harder for them to grow at the pace that they would like to grow. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at the industry, look at the top 50 watch brands, those that are growing fastest are not necessarily those that just have strong sustainability strategies, but it's no coincidence that they do have strong sustainability practices.
Isabel, I saw you nodding before. What is your reaction to what you're hearing now?
No, but I think, and maybe it's a bit making things a bit broader into the field of sustainability, but of course it's an imperative for any brand. And it's also a clear business driver, a driver for preference. So if we just go back to what you were mentioning on why is it an imperative? It's an imperative because none of us want to leave a world at +4 degrees, for us, for our kids, because of the regulations, but also because basically, if I look at our clients in the luxury beauty, for instance, half of them would say that they would abandon brands that are failing in taking or making commitments, notably in the environmental field. So, I mean, it's at the core of what we need to face, and that's for me a great lever to drive further change. But more than the constraint, then it's also a clear driver of relevance, of preference, of performance, and you are aware of all the studies that were mentioned already. Diana was mentioning some of them. I mean, yes, meaningful brands outperform. Yes, more diversity and inclusion into boards, be it gender or ethnic diversity, are correlated with a higher likelihood to outperform financially. So if you don't do it for ethical reasons, just do it for the sake of the bottom line. And then, I mean, best talents are coming more and staying more in companies that are acting in the field of sustainability and visibly. So it's a competitive advantage. And just, yes, of course, in the field of transparency, to make it very, in our case, because you were asking what's the trigger, I mean, when you are offering skincare products, it's touching your skin, you want to know, it's like what you eat. So of course, maybe we are a little bit more like, there was the food industry first, cosmetic industry, and now maybe it's the time for other luxury industries like watches. And I just want to add another build, which is what you said earlier, which is luxury brands have an amazing power to shift culture. It's a great power. It's a great responsibility. I've been joining the luxury industry very recently, like a bit more than a year ago. And before that, I was in the food industry. We were looking at this inspirational power of luxury brands.
I think the great irony is that
this is a fantastic opportunity.
the great irony is that 40 years after Gordon Gekko, greed is now good. Talking about the bottom line.
The good thing is when we hear that, we hear hope, we hear that a change is possible, and this is what we want. Because to just corroborate what you just said, Isabella, I have some facts and figures from an Ipsos study that came out not a long time ago in France, and it says 72% of French people expect from a brand to be responsible and transparent, and 89% of them are ready to leave a brand if they feel the brand is not honest to them. So what can we say? I mean, this is a must. We've said it, we're going to keep on talking about it, but right now we have to do a short pause because we have to turn to Benjamin and Pascal. I'm sure you have some questions for us from our audience. What was the main topic? What did you get?
Well, it's been an interesting topic, obviously, and one of the questions that really rebounds on what is just being said is, this is too urgent. How do we get companies to adopt this transparent approach? Should there be a legal frame to enforce it?
So legal frame is really interesting, and maybe I'm going to turn to you, Sabrina. I saw you doing no, and I saw you doing yes, so I want both point of view. That's interesting.
Yes. So I was saying no, not because I'm against a legal framework. I think a legal framework might be useful in some situation. I'm just wondering, putting in balance the time needed for a result. First, to have a law, an effective law, and then to know whether really it was the right tool. I'm not sure. I think we have some other tools with industry standards. They do have their limits, of course. But
What kind of tools are you thinking of?
I think there is, if we speak about gold, there are industry standards in place. There's also the role played by the NGOs representing civil society. And this is a much more, and the media, of course, the media, definitely.
Do you think it's enough?
I think that's what triggered the change. I think it is. It's not, I mean, let's think about it. You would like to have a law about transparency, but how to address transparency in one law when there's so many topics on that? It's so difficult.
Well, the good news is
Diana. Yeah.
it's here to stay. So the European Union just passed the law, actually, that this is going to be an imperative for brands to disclose value chain operating, how companies are moving. We have the new financial framework, TCFD. I can't believe I said it right. I remember all the words, which actually are forced to disclosure. You have the new GRR framework for bigger companies in order to disclose. And I'm glad that Isabel, because I have the pleasure to actually know her, she's an absolute rock star. She comes from the food industry and she has an incredible transformation in her previous company. And you know, when you have that kind of power behind and that knowledge, you kind of actually see hope. But you have, it's not just one thing. We don't have time. We don't have time for volunteer and ponder anymore whether this is the right thing to do or not. This is the only thing to do if we want our kids to really have a world that we had enjoy. And if you don't believe my words, look at the IPCC report and look how many species have been in extinction in our lifetime. Look at how many plants, not just animals, but also plants has been extincted. Look at climate change, just read the news, fires, droughts, London flooding. I mean, the world is crazy, and we as humans have the power that if we work together, we can actually change the fate of the human race. Why not do it?
Sabrina.
Yes, if I may add something. As I said, I'm not against the law, per se. I'm just saying that, well, let's take the example of the EU law on conflict minerals. It came in 2021. It's based on the OECD guidelines, which were issued in 2010. It took 11 years. To have a law. So I'm not saying that a law is not good. I'm just saying it is urgent. So do we have time to wait until governments are okay and agree all together to have this? I think the industry is made of humans just like you and I, and they have families and they have concerns as well. So I cannot believe that they just do not care about the future. I'm sure they do, and I count on them to really be brave enough to make a change. And I think it's a mix of both that will make things
Should
work.
it be maybe an industry commitment, something that is made inside and not outside?
Not only a commitment, not inside or outside, all together. I think we need all the industry, but we need also civil society. Because maybe one reason in the gold industry that brands have not disclosed so much so far, maybe it's because they would think that maybe the public is not ready to know the reality of what extraction is.
We do now.
And I think we are ready for that, and we are okay with that as long as it's done responsibly. And so let's try this all together.
I think the challenge at the moment is that because there's no regulation, you're left only with self-regulation.
That's it.
And from self-regulation, self-certification. And self-certification is worth next to nothing. There are a number of brands in the Swiss watch industry at the moment that are working with third-party authorities, organisations, independent companies that have been set up to manage climate neutrality, for example. And that's a positive step, that's a right step. I think having that third-party authorisation brings the legitimacy that we need in order to prove some level of transparency. But clearly the situation as it stands is unsatisfactory, and more needs to be done to somehow centralise activity and unite around a common goal.
So I agree with you. We have a certification, so Positive Luxury certified companies with a butterfly mark, which is ESG. but we take in account 180 other certifications in order to have visibility in the value chain. Also, furthermore, we are assured by a standards body that actually check that we are actually doing the right thing, because otherwise, how can you certify somebody if you're not certified? But the point is, certifications needs to be held accountable. That we actually doing the right thing and advising people and getting people in the right path. Otherwise, like you said, it's meaningless. And certifications cannot be set up by industry. It has to be independent. So we are completely independent and we are open for scrutiny. And that's why we take other certifications within the value chain, like FSC. That they know about forestry more than we do, but that's why we take their word for it. And so we look at that. And I think that before we had the luxury to, have, certifications and voluntary schemes and so on, but now it needs to be a combination of everything, because we only have 30 years, and this is our reality. So it's a lot of different things that happen together. Yeah, government's too slow, certifications, great. But also it has to be the willingness to invest. Because when you say companies, why they're not going faster? Because there are realities. There is a bottom line, and that bottom line is very real, and companies have to report. So
let's talk about what needs to be done next. But I just want to reach to my guys again to see if they still have some questions for us, and I'm sure they do.
Yes, we do. We have an early question, probably has been already discussed, but is the luxury product going to lose its mystery by disclosing what the companies are doing to, in terms of transparency?
Robin, do you want to give it a go?
So maybe I also answer that question. Not in this respect, no, absolutely not. And I think, although we love brands to be entirely open, goodness, I'd love brands to be entirely open, we have to respect at the same time that sometimes there's intellectual property, which, if it's open sourced, they might lose their competitive advantage. I think when it comes to sustainability, we might look at the example of Panerai. So they produced a watch which is 98% recycled by weight. They worked with 11, 12, 13 different independent organizations to develop the different materials, and then said to the industry, if you want to come to us, we will share the information with you. I think that's necessary, but no, I don't think that brands should be entirely reflexively open with everything that they have, because they will give away their advantage.
It's a good balance to find, actually.
Yeah, there still needs to be some intrigue in a luxury brand, because and there needs to be something to learn, there needs to be something new to experience, otherwise there's nothing special about it.
Isabel, what do you think about it? How do you do this special balance between giving and at the same time keeping the dream about the brand?
What I want to build on is the ability of luxury brands to combine sustainability and desirability. And I think there is a great ability for the luxury industry to tell inspiring stories, to show inspiring savoir-faire, to unveil great ingredients, raw materials, and show them in the way that is desirable. And so for me, there is no contradiction in telling more about who you are with sincerity and remaining inspirational. I think proximity and inspiration are not contradictions. So I'm sorry if I'm not very illustrative,
No, but I think it's clear.
I see lots of examples of making, new materials that are recycled being used in an extraordinarily beautiful way. I see amazing ways.
Can you give us concrete examples?
Providing new behaviors.
Can you give us concrete examples?
So it's not, if I want to move directly to transparency just go to our Dior.com website and you will see an example of providing more information in a way that is super convenient, that is user-friendly, and that is very nice, okay, to better understand the role of the ingredients, the why, so this is a very small example. Another example that is not directly about transparency, but that is about shifting perceptions or reinventing the codes, is when you are going to choose a nice perfume like Sauvage, as I was mentioning, or a nice skincare products. We have prestige products like La Crème. All of them are refillable. The experience may have been perceived some years ago as a degradation of the experience. But on the contrary, you can have a very beautiful object. You can show it in a way that is inspirational. And then, of course, it's a journey to basically inspire, to shift even further our clients' habits. But I think we with luxury brands, we have the ability to drive these positive messages. So let's take it.
Jana, I wanted.
I just wanted to ask to say it concretely. You said concretely in the building what Isabel said in the watch industry. If you go to IWC, for example, and you go to the sustainability page, you can actually see, and this is what is inspiring about them, is the fact that you can see there are 50% here, 60% there, 30% there, and very clearly show what the commitments, where the target, what is the progress, and exactly what they're doing in order to actually bridge that gap between where they want to go and where they are right now. I mean, IWC has been certified with the butterfly mark 9 years ago. 9 years ago. And when we started working with them, I have to say this, and forgive me, Francisca, but their packaging was horrendous, was huge plastic boxes. When you see the packaging today, it's inspiring, it's tiny. And you can actually, it's a packaging system. You can actually have tiny boxes with a little thing inside that you can put your, your rings and stuff like that. And if you want like the actual system, so more than one watch, you pay for your packaging. That is transformation. And I think that this is what, when Isabel's talking about concrete example, is that kind of...
That's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. You can look at it. It's black and white. It has happened. It's happening.
So my next question is, where do we have to work now? Where are the next goals? Where do we have to do more?
So I would say if I'm talking to civil society, I would say hold us accountable. Don't just take, we are sourcing responsibly. Fine, what does it mean responsibly? What part of your supply chain is actually this responsible sourcing? And for brands, I would say, go for it. Be more transparent. Some brands have been doing it. I'm thinking of Breitling, who recently mentioned what type of gold they are sourcing, 100%. So this is something really bold that they've been doing. I mean, Aurelia at Breitling is doing a huge work, fantastic work. But I think it shows also the commitment of her top management. And so I would tell brands, look at the smaller brands. They've been doing it. It's a hard work. It's a bit more work. It's maybe a bit more pricey, but that's the fair price somehow. So go for it, be more transparent, and everything will be fine.
Robin, where is there more work to do according to you?
I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is that among the four panelists, there is no one representing the watch industry. And I hope that that's not entirely indicative of the watch industry's approach. And I know you tried.
Yeah.
So I would encourage the watch industry to front up. Come and tell us what you're doing and do it better. And set yourself visions, targets, goals, and go for them, exactly as we've just been saying.
May I just add just one thing? Then let's meet in 1 year. Let's see in 1 year. Because I've been working with them within the forum, and I really have to say, they come to the table, and they accept the challenge when they don't have to, because their results are showing that they don't need to be challenged, right? So far. And so I would say they are working on that. Let's meet again in 1 year and we'll see. And hopefully we'll have plenty of brands around the table.
We are sending the message. We would be very happy to welcome a panel with many watchmakers here at the table. That would be our best bow, you know. What did you want to say, Sabrina?
What I think is we need to look beyond the value chain.
Diana, sorry.
No, it's okay. We need to look beyond the value chain. It's about ESG. It's about, like, you know, the governance of the business, the leadership of the business, the board, and how sustainability trickles down into every single function in the organization. And how, you know, also the elephant in the room is scope 3, is suppliers. How do we, how do we internalize those supply chains, and how do we get that accountability? So it's beyond the supply chain. It's about leadership. It's about change of culture, change of mindset, and really kind of driving from within at unison. So I think sustainability is important, but I think we're moving into the new eras of ESG, which is like, you know, and innovation is massively important in that front.
Isabelle, at Christian Dior Parfum, where do you see you have some work to do? Where do you want to go?
Of course, we have a lot of work to do on all fronts. Where I think we can make a specific difference is in shifting perceptions and concretely investing in the regenerative power of flowers. So it's about notably building on the latest IUCN red list. So I guess none of you know that flower plants are, the rate of extinction is twice faster than other biodiversity. It's at the core of our upstream value chain, and we want to move to further organic and regenerative practices, as I said. But beyond that, what we are currently exploring is how to combine and reintroduce flower plants into broader agricultural ecosystems. We are working in this field, notably with our growers, but also with Hectare, which is the biggest agricultural campus at the gates of Paris, dedicated to regeneration. So we will work with academics there, we will run scientific studies, and we will also run programs of coaching and transmission on regeneration there through flowers. So more to come on this front. So I think that's where we can play a transformative role. But of course, we need to work on all other dimensions. As I said, climate, 1.5 degree reduction trajectory, eco-design, responsible formulation. We need to make sure that we leverage our positive influence in culture. So that's what that's a list of things that we, of course, need to work on. So a lot of work ahead of us. And I want to say that, just to add on what you were saying earlier, that we can count on talents, we can count on the creativity of people. And as I'm further engaging with our colleagues within Parfum Christian Dior, and for instance, running workshops on climate that are called like La Fresque du Climat, the climate fresque, that has been already lived by more than 300,000 people in different companies, in different industries, in France notably, but not only. I see the amazing how it unleashes the power of people to act, and we need everyone. So I think there is only good thing in driving this move.
The next question could be, we heard from you, Isabel, okay, we have this whole list of goals we want to reach, but then how do you go really concretely to goals, doing them, and not just thinking, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that? How do you accompany maybe the brands who want to go in this direction, but maybe don't really know how to do it? That could be also a problem.
So I would say on my side, what I've been trying to do is, of course, I'm focused on precious metals. This is my specialty. And what I've been trying to do is first to create the dialogue and have actors meet and get to know each other. Something that was very obvious from the very beginning of the organization of the forum was that these actors who are part of the value chain, they have to work together, but they don't know each other that much, right? So the first step for me is to first acknowledge that you do not know everything just because you are a brand or because you are a refiner or because you are a miner. Understand that, acknowledge that, then agree to meet others and learn from others. And once you heard the reality of others, then we can set up goals, clear goals, and work towards achieving them. But the first step is to learn from each other, definitely.
So this is really a question of collaboration. This is hand to hand. You
Definitely.
can't do anything by yourself.
I mean, unless you have a cooperation among the entire supply chain, you cannot make a real significant change, in my opinion.
So this is the way to go concrete.
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we do, the first thing is, I mean, every organization is doing something about sustainability somewhere. Today, that is the reality. So our assessment, what it does is enables organizations to collect all of these different activities in one central point. So then we can actually play back what is their baseline, what are they doing, how is that? So from an environmental, from a social, from a governance, and from an innovation perspective. And when we look at that, we say, right, okay, this is where you are, this is your risks, and this is your gaps.
Right.
Now, what are you going to do? And we help them in order to get to that process, to get to the next step, because it's incredibly hard. I mean, we heard just from Isabel, when you're trying to quantify in your head the scale of the impact is, and the strands of work is so big, and resources is something that most organizations are struggling with. Mm-hmm. So when you do, not you do the work, but you enable that work with technology in a very organized way, kind of saves times, saves manpower, and companies feel a little bit more empowered than having to think about this because the topic is huge.
It's huge.
In parallel with that, we do the exact same thing with our suppliers. So they can invite their key suppliers to go and work in the platform, and basically individually. They don't have to do it themselves. The suppliers can do that individually, and we can collect all the data and play that back to the brands. So it's about how do you help the companies with technology. I think technology is at the heart of sustainability, to actually help them to speed up and to think about, okay,
to move forward.
To move forward, yeah.
We have some questions from Pascal and from Benjamin. I saw you making signs. Yes, here we are, ready for you. So what kind of concerns do our audience have?
Well, they've been responding to what's being said on the panel, and one of the questions to understand the perspective and the timing there is between the moment you realize something and you actually implement it. So a question directly to Isabel, how long did it take for you to implement those changes at Dior Parfum?
As I told you, there was a very fertile soil, very great DNA, great values, and already many existing initiatives. And then there was, let's say, an acceleration in the willingness to umbrellize, strategize, I don't know, embark quicker the whole organization. So on my side, I've been like joining a little bit more than a year ago. And my priority with my GM and the whole team has been to shape a rallying purpose, and to do that we've been so that's what we encapsulate into leaving only beauty as a legacy. And I think it was a very important process of collaboration. So that would be my first advice if anyone needs an advice. So working with internal as well as external stakeholders, listening to the clients we want to serve, and listening to civil society, listening to our suppliers, listening to our clients, listening to everyone that has a point of view on what we're doing. So I strongly engage in basically defining what you stand for. And then, I mean, the questions I've been raising have not been, I mean, it's very simple. And then, yes, setting us up for success in terms of the level of ambition, the commitments, the action plans, it's only the start of the journey. So, I mean, it's been a year, we're setting the foundations, building on a fertile ground, leveraging what has never been said, that had kept discrete, further building and stretching it, notably when I speak about the relationship with the extraordinarily committed flower growers that we are working with. It's been 15 years. They have started for a long time, and I think we can bring it further, and we will do it together. So, and then to translate everything into our innovations, of course, there is a lead time. Of course, the innovations that are coming today in market are not strictly in line with the commitments we are making, or because it takes, I don't know, 3 years to develop. And when I'm saying we are adopting a responsible formulation charter, where we stand not only for meeting or being compliant with the international regulations, but where we are, for instance, willing to exit, adopting a precautionary principle in anticipation. We are just saying we will change any further development, and we will clean our existing portfolio. But we are never going to match the charter, because it's going to evolve. So we are always going to be in process of progression. How do you say that in English? It's a progression journey. I don't know if it answers your question.
Benjamin Pascal, do you have another question?
Yes, actually, the panel has been very fertile, and we've crossed a lot of questions already. We've also talked about collaborations, but maybe one question that is linked to that is, how do we get brands that have this tradition of secrecy or shyness or non-communication to collaborate more? If they don't come directly to our panelists, how would be an incitement for them to collaborate more?
Robin, you want to try?
I'd say look at your bottom line. Look at what your customer wants. We asked earlier what the trigger was. I think the number one answer to that is the consumer. If the consumer demands it, then you need to respond. Otherwise, you lose your customer.
That's always the question base, Does the customer ask for, or is it the brand that have to push forward?
I think it's both. Anecdotally speaking with brands, they are reporting an increasing number of customers coming in through the front door and asking these questions. Where is this material sourced from? Where have these diamonds come from? What's your carbon footprint look like? What are you doing to offset it? What are you doing to reduce it? This is not abnormal anymore. Brands shouldn't be surprised if a customer comes through the door and asks the question. I think there's also, I'll just try and answer that question if I can.
Sure.
There's a question of vulnerability. No, I don't think anybody is expecting a brand that doesn't currently have a sustainability strategy to understand how to become more sustainable. Brands just need to put their hands up and say, can you help us? Exactly as you were saying.
That was my former question.
These organisations now exist. Positive Luxury has been around a long time. IWC has been working with it for 9 years, as you said. Oris worked with Climate Partner. There are organisations out there who can help you calculate your carbon footprint, who can help you offset it, who can help you put in place strategies to reduce your carbon footprint.
But then, Robin,
It's
you
not
will
difficult.
agree with me if I say, but you need to decide it. You need to want it.
Yeah, you do. But again, I think I go back to your brands are driven by their consumers. They make products that their consumers want, in theory. If they don't, then they don't tend to be
Logically.
terribly successful. And I think that the pressure from alphas, from Gen Zs, and many older consumers as well, let's not reduce it to youth, are increasingly demanding of brands. I think we started out the conversation by saying this isn't just a nice to have anymore, it's not a reward for purchase, it's a non-negotiable. And all the studies that have been done into this, you mentioned one, Accenture have done one, Bain have done one. Every time it's 80% plus of customers say, I want to invest in brands that have environmentally and socially responsible practices in place.
Can I build on
Sure,
that really
sure.
quickly? You just said the magic word, invest. Because luxury is an investment purchase. You don't buy a Christian Dior bag and you throw it in the bin. I mean, if you do, let me know where. I'll be there. Or
You won't be the only one.
yeah, we should kill that. Do you know, you invest in luxury. You invest. You don't buy a watch for yourself right here, right now. You invest it into the future generations. And this is the thing. It's like, you know, I think we had since the Industrial Revolution to pre-COVID, I would say, we have a time in which fast fashion, fast beauty, fast jewelry, fast everything. And I think COVID made us pause and actually ask fundamental existential questions in which actually luxury, it has a role to play because it's a piece that you invest, you pass on. And actually, if you buy a bag today or a watch today, you can sell it pretty much for double if you keep it for a few years. So
It's a good investment for sure.
and the younger generation have found resale, which is a fantastic way to earn money. So, you know, the business models are now there for the younger generations to actually have access to luxury, but also exploit the mother's or the father's investment in order to get pocket money. So luxury is an investment, and quality and values in the way that you just described it are imperative.
But at the same time, I don't think brands can hide behind that. And I know that's not what you're saying. But I think there are still too many brands in the industry whose answer to the sustainability question is, I make a product that's designed to last forever. That's not good enough. That's nowhere near good enough.
It doesn't work anymore.
And I think the industry needs to move away from that very rapidly. I think it also needs to recognise that sustainability, transparency, responsibility, this can be cool. It can be sexy. It already is. I mean, to use a slightly pretentious expression that I may have coined myself, I think they should capture the Wertgeist. It's the virtuous zeitgeist. You know, we, as I said earlier, greed is now good. It is good. You are going to be more successful if you intend to be good, if you're intentional about it.
You shouldn't
If you
see it as
invest
a
in it.
risk, but as something
It's
cool.
not a risk. It's not a risk.
Sabrina.
Yes, going back to the question about how to make them collaborate more, I would say that brands need to understand, if it's not already done, that they will not be able to make a significant change on their own. So we've seen a number of collaborations between brands that personally I never expected them to be able to come together. But they are able to, and I would say two things. The first thing, you will not be able to change the world if you want to do it on your own. You have to work with the industry. And the second thing is, well, I understand it might not be very comfortable. There was a way to do business until now, which was we are competitors, we want to keep our savoir-faire, and we want to stand out of the box, right? But now, if you want to be really doing something, making a revolution, the revolution now is to show that you are able to work all together for the common interest.
And we will finish with your words, because this is already the end of this panel. It went like this. So let me maybe summarize in a few words. First of all, thank you for being with us and for sharing your visions, your point of views. And well, for showing us that actually transparency could be cool, could be fun, could be nice, and it's not an aspiration anymore, it's a must. We need to accept the risk of being exposed publicly and show vulnerability, and a complex mentality change is needed. A complete, actually, mentality change, not complex. And we need to embrace transparency and promote collaboration. This is it for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this panel discussion. We will meet again tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we will be talking about sustainable sources and practices. Another vibrant discussion ahead of us. Thank you for tuning in today. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.